slide this now because we were going to have to move it for Dwayne, and now we don't have to. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. If everybody would please be seated. I would like to welcome everyone here today to our 95th induction into the National Honor Society. I would like to remind the students this is a formal assembly and to be on your best behavior, and we will get started with Miss Emma Donaldson.
At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington.
It is my pleasure this morning to introduce the presiding officers of the National Honor Society. These students have been elected to office in the Central Chapter of National Honor Society by their fellow members. First, Colin Gentry, President. That will be in just a second. Okay. Again, it is my pleasure this morning to introduce the presiding officers of the National Honor Society. First, I'd like to introduce Colin Gentry, President. Ruby Jenko, Vice President. Mayreen Tai, Secretary. And Sierra Farrow, Treasurer. These four will conduct the remainder of the assembly. Congratulations to all of you.
Dr. Godfrey, other administrators, members of the faculty, and my fellow students, parents, and other guests, I thank my fellow National Honor Society members for the honor and privilege of serving as president this year. At this time, I shall introduce the senior members of the Society who were inducted in their junior year. Ashlyn Bardo, Anna Blatcher, Sierra Bruca, William Burkert, Sarah Burr, Abigail Caldwell, Jenna Kripe, Madison Curtin, Ryan Dale, Corinne Darnell, Emma Donaldson, Tyler Dorsey, Julia Fangman, Zachary Hanlon, Braxton Hardy, Liza Healer, Claudia Kammerer, Haley Cruzy, Scott Lee, Jennifer Lockhead, Lydia Woody, Luke Zwierink, Sydney Wetlaufer, Benjamin Willoughby, Alyssa Till, Felix Wong, Madeline Sprague, Jaden Stanton, Claire Richardson, Madison Roderick, Hunter Madison, Mackenzie Miller, Joshua Clarendon, Abby Grooms, Bailey Aldrich, Alexanica Neighbors, Sierra Farrow, Maureen Ty, and Ruby Jenko. It is my pleasure to welcome you this morning when 44 students will be initiated into the National Honor Society. These students were tapped for membership on March 12th. Each of them possesses the 4 qualities for membership in the National Honor Society: scholarship, service, leadership, and character. In addition, the initiates have distinguished themselves in various pursuits in the school and community. The senior members proudly recognize the abilities and achievements of the new members and welcome them to the Society. Will the initiates please come forward? The initiates may be seated. Before you are 44 initiates ready to be inducted into the National Honor Society. The Central Chapter was chartered on March 10, 1925, with 16 initial members. We have one of the oldest charters in the nation, number 269. Despite wars and depressions, the Society has continued strong, and the induction ceremony has been held for 95 consecutive years. The candles used in this ceremony symbolize knowledge, the torch of learning that is ever passed on. When the National Honor Society was founded in 1921, the National Council authorized and approved the official emblem, which you see before you. Only members may wear its insignia. The official colors of the Society are blue and gold, and the Society's motto is Noblesse Oblige. In broader terms, it means that members have the obligation to behave honorably, generously, and responsibly to others. Before we begin our ceremony, we'd like to welcome Mr. Dwayne Smith, who will introduce the Academic Hall of Fame honorees.
Good morning, Central High School. First, to our National Honor Society inductees, let me begin with my personal congratulations. What a great honor and achievement. I thought the words of Martin Luther King III, son of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., were perfect to introduce today's ceremony. Let me read this quote. "The future belongs to those who are educated and prepared to meet the challenges and opportunities of tomorrow. You can make a difference for the better if you will stand up and be counted as a servant of humanity. Ultimately, you've got to be the best of who you are." Which is exactly what J.K. Rowling, the famous Harry Potter author, emphasized in this quote. "I would like to be remembered as someone who did the best she could with the talent she had." And for those of you sitting here on stage, and those of you out there as well, this J.K. Rowling quote brings us to our purpose today. The moment you are old enough to take the wheel, responsibility lies with you. Each of you will drive a different car and take a different road to reach your destination in life. It is a great honor to be able to introduce today the 2018 and 2019 inductees for the Enright Academic Hall of Fame. 3 Central High School alumni who chose different paths, drove different roads, but all have excelled in their careers and professions. They have all had a positive impact. They have inspired others with their work and dedication, and they have inspired me personally. It makes me proud to be an alumnus of this great high school. Before we introduce our inductees, however, I would like to briefly recognize and thank the Enright Academic Hall of Fame Committee, who reviewed the many qualified nominees from Central alumni, had difficult decisions to make, and decided on 3 inductees for this year. The committee included Dr. Gottfried, Dr. Larson, myself, Mr. Van Dyke, Mr. Vogelmont, and our community representative, Ms. Pye Enright McCall. The criteria for introduction. Candidates will demonstrate significant contributions or accomplishments in their profession or field, possess high character, be distinguished at the state, national, or international level in contributing to their field of work or study, and demonstrate personal excellence. Let me introduce at this time the first of our 3 inductees. Dr. Samuel J. Hassenbusch III was born in 1954 in St. Joseph, Missouri. He was affectionately known to his close friends and family as Sam or Hoppy. Dr. Hassenbusch received high marks at school and excelled in everything he tried. He played both the violin and trumpet as he entered high school, and while in high school, he earned his Eagle Scout. He graduated in 1971. To his colleagues and co-workers, he was professor of neurosurgery, a highly acclaimed neurosurgeon, and an internationally known expert and opinion leader in pain management. Dr. Hassenbusch's claims to fame were many and varied, beginning with election to Phi Beta Kappa as an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins and progressing through the Resident of the Year award at Johns Hopkins, where he did his medical school and neurosurgical training and also obtained a PhD in pharmacology. Dr. Hassenbusch is shown here in the operating room in the early years in 1987. This is the same year he participated as a member of the team of 4 neurosurgeons who performed the pioneering surgery to separate twins conjoined at the back of the head. That surgery, with Dr. Ben Carson, former candidate for President of the United States, as the lead surgeon, ultimately became the backdrop for the book Gifted Hands and the movie based on the book starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Dr. Hassenbusch's career was marked by excellence in whatever he chose to pursue. His primary clinical interests were in the areas of brain tumor treatment and brain pain control, regarding which he authored numerous publications, invited articles, and book chapters. With his colleagues, Dr. Hassenbusch is credited with developing novel techniques, therapies, and methods for infusing drugs to block pain, His research interests also included medical techniques and interventions. Dr. Hassenbusch advanced to the level of full professor in the Department of Neurosurgery at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, was also the medical director of the Physician Referral Service, and at the same time he was associate professor, Department of Neurosurgery, Division of Surgery, Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Hassenbusch also served in a leadership role as president of many professional societies, academies, and associations, as shown here on this slide. Dr. Hassenbusch's accomplishments and awards are numerous, including Distinguished Service Awards, as shown here on this slide, and several Lifetime Achievement Awards. And not surprisingly, he also received America's Top Doctors and Best Doctors in America awards. Further, the Samuel J. Hassenbusch MD PhD Lectureship Award is an annual award created by the Texas Pain Society to honor his memory, and the MD Anderson Cancer Center recently established the Leadership and Institutional Service Award. Dr. Hassenbusch treated about 500 brain cancer patients in the course of his career and performed more than 500 surgeries to remove glioblastoma tumors. Ironically, Dr. Hassenbusch was diagnosed with glioblastoma himself in 2005. He valiantly fought the disease, but sadly, ultimately died from it. Upon his diagnosis of brain cancer, Dr. Hassenbusch began work on a book. The idea was to give insight into dealing with cancer from both the perspective of the patient and the physician. He worked on the book off and on for 2 years. After his father's death, his son Jason finished the book with his perspectives as a family member and adding a memory to his father. The main theme that he wanted to offer is hope and courage, said Jason. For several years, Dr. Hassenbusch was Grand Marshal of the Ride for the Rose, which raises funds for cancer research and pediatric cancer patients. And in 2008, the Ride for the Rose was dedicated in his honor. Dr. Hassenbusch was a man who changed many lives as a physician, many as a cancer patient, and even more as a wonderful human being. Central High School is proud that he was a graduate of this school and what he accomplished in his life. Dr. Samuel J. Hassenbusch, a truly remarkable and amazing graduate of Central High School. Accepting the award on behalf of the Hassenbusch family is Dr. Hassenbusch's widow, Rhonda, who incidentally first met Dr. Hassenbusch while they were both students here at Central High School. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hassenbusch, for being here today. And let me give you this award on behalf of Central High School. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Eric Simmons to the stage from our art department. And Mr. Simmons is going to introduce our next inductee into the Enright Academic Hall of Fame.
Our next inductee, Jacqueline Bishop, is a 1973 graduate of Central High School. She is a highly acclaimed artist who has created a remarkable body of work. While at Central, Miss Bishop was involved in many activities, often centered around her interest in art. She worked as a teacher's assistant for Miss Nancy Nelson in the English department and Miss Jane Voss in the art department, and sold her first painting while here at Central High School. And I believe that retired English teacher Miss Nelson is here with us today. Welcome back. Miss Bishop is known here in, Miss Bishop is shown here on the screen in 1972, working on an art project in Miss Voss's art class. Her passion for art was already clearly evident. Miss Bishop went from Central to the University of Kansas and then to the University of New Orleans, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in painting. Her Master of Fine Arts degree is from Tulane University. She taught art classes at both Tulane and Loyola universities. Before we get to her artwork, I'd like to point out that Miss Bishop has accomplished many things throughout the years. For example, she was co-producer and interviewer on Louisiana Artist, a program that aired on WWNO, a national public radio affiliate, where she interviewed contemporary artists about their work. She won several annual Press Club awards for this show. Miss Bishop has also authored books, such as En Memoria Chico Mendes, a tribute to the 10-year anniversary of his death, about the slain Brazilian rubber tapper environmentalist. Further, she received several grants from foundations such as the Warhol and the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Miss Bishop has been interviewed or written about by several news organizations such as NPR, Morning Edition, and the Huffington Post. Miss Bishop's worldview is reflected in her practices as an artist. Her work has taken her to third world countries, Louisiana swamps and Latin American rainforests, where she's captured both the beauty and the desolation of the natural world. She experienced firsthand the impact of Hurricane Katrina and the British petroleum oil spill in the Gulf Coast. Miss Bishop's art is much more than paintings on a canvas or installation pieces. It is social and environmental consciousness that is communicated through art. In his book, Expressions of Place, The Contemporary Louisiana Landscape, John Kemp emphasized, her surreal images of the landscape evoke thoughts about death and rebirth, tranquility and destruction, light and dark, and humanity's lost intimacy with nature. Here at Central, Ms. Kirkendall was asked by the selection committee to review Ms. Bishop's artwork. Here's what she had to say. I think Jacqueline Bishop's work is absolutely worthy. The symbolism and technique is beautiful, from her paintings to prints to installation pieces. There is a lot of depth of emotion in her work. Ms. Bishop has exhibited in solo and group exhibitions in museums, art centers, and galleries throughout the United States. Her imagery has been used in various projects, such as the opera Rainforest by Martin Reed and Philip Haley in England. She also collaborated with the critically acclaimed British maze artist Adrian Fisher, designing the imagery for the Darwin Center at the Edinburgh Zoo. Miss Bishop's artwork is included in numerous art institutions and private collections, such as the Detroit Museum of Art, in Minneapolis Institute of Art, and the Pennsylvania Academy of the Arts. I could go on, but there is simply way too many to mention or highlight here today. So let me just take a moment to highlight a few of her art pieces. The first one is named Forest, from 2010, and is an oil on Belgium linen. It is displayed at the embassy in the Dominican Republic. The next one is from 2009 and is a lithograph on paper. It is displayed at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art in Kansas City. The next time you visit the museum, make sure that you look for her artwork. Or you might also want to check out her artwork right here in St. Joseph at the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art. Finally, one that's a private collection piece, Worldview, from 2009 to 2010, which is an oil on Belgium linen. At this time, let me welcome Miss Jacqueline Bishop to the stage and back home to Central High School.
Wow. Thank you. Good morning, Central High School. So glad to be back. Y buenos días, estudiantes en el programa ILL. Dos lenguas es muy importante en Estados Unidos. And thank you, Megan Wyeth, Dwayne Smith, so much. The Enright family, Pi, and Central High School for including me with so many impressive recipients. No doubt about it, my years at Central shaped me into what I do today: write and make art. Freshman year here introduced me to art history and the creative process. The next 3 years in Jane Voss's art class as a student assistant allowed me the freedom to explore painting, pottery, silversmithing, mosaic, macrame, weaving, and collage. This formed my curiosity and work ethic. Later, Jane Voss arranged a field trip to the University of Kansas Art Department, which sealed the deal. I had never connected art making to academia. I was also an assistant to English instructor Nancy Nelson, who gave her after hours to help edit my poetry for national poetry competitions that I never won. But we continued to labor over the structure of my language for weeks. To this day, language affects the way I title paintings, exhibitions, and write my lectures. And I learned that the way we use language says so much about who we are. And to know other languages is power, poder. Because of this foundation, it never occurred to me that I couldn't succeed in anything I wanted to do. It never occurred to me that there were new issues to be challenged until I went to university and was introduced to 4 years of art history using that 4-inch thick college textbook by H.W. Jansen that covered art from the cave paintings to the present. But there were no women in that book. There were no people of color in that book. Having a strong foundation from Central High School apparently did not deter me. Of course, I had to work harder in the male-dominated art world. After attending the University of Kansas, receiving a BA at the University of New Orleans and an MFA on scholarship at Tulane University, I taught art at university level. The work ethic continues today with 7 days a week in the studio making art, writing lectures, communicating through art. My work has taken me all over the world to seek out art museums in Europe, collect subject matter and material in the Amazon, to write a small book about a slain Brazilian rubber tapper, exhibit my work, give lectures in universities in India, Bangladesh, Brazil, learn new languages, and meet incredible people. Being introduced to new cultures and other countries allowed me to see my own country in a different light. I collaborated with composers, sculptors, poets, philosophers, environmental journalists, and former students for projects. Since my art explores environmental issues, it enabled a crossover into the sciences like botany, ornithology, ethnobotany, mammalogy, which allowed travel through the jungles of Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Venezuela, with some of the most prominent scientists for bird watching, orchid hunting, and documenting illegal forest fires. Ironically, my paintings now cover college textbooks and environmental studies programs and novels. There is an absolute importance of taking advantage of every class you take, every school activity, and friendship you make. Our little artist-run brush and pencil club was a network. The all-school play was a family. Our high school friendships can be lifetime friends, and some of mine are sitting right here with my adult sons. Thank you again. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Jeff Carter in our history department to step to the podium and introduce our last inductee for today. Mr. Jeff Carter.
All right, good morning. Our final inductee today is Dr. Stephen Hockman. Dr. Hockman is a 1963 graduate of Central High School, where he was involved in various activities, which included leadership roles such as an editor for the school newspaper, The Outlook, and president of the Forum Club. Central High School laid the foundation for Dr. Hockman's engagement with history and public affairs, which he continued at the University of Missouri, where he graduated with honors in history. He was named a Thomas Jefferson Foundation Fellow at the University of Virginia, where he received his Master of Arts and PhD in history. At this university, which was founded by Thomas Jefferson, he became the research assistant to Dumas Malone and assisted with the final 3 volumes of the Pulitzer Prize-winning 6-volume biography of Jefferson. That series today is still one of the most authoritative works on Jefferson. Dumas Malone was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1983 by President Reagan. In 1981, former President Jimmy Carter asked Dr. Hockman to join him in Plains, Georgia, to assist with writing his presidential memoir. The memoir was published in 1982 under the title, Keeping Faith, Memoirs of a President. To many people, Jimmy Carter has provided Americans with an ideal model of post-presidential life. In fact, some consider him to be the greatest former president. He has emerged as a champion of human rights and worked for several charitable causes. To that end, Carter founded the Carter Presidential Center at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, according to Robert A. Strong, a professor at Washington and Lee University. So in 1982, Jimmy Carter partnered with Emory University to create the Carter Center, and Dr. Stephen Hockman was hired as the first staff member for the center. Dr. Hockman remains a key person at the Carter Center today, serving as the center's director of research. The Carter Center is a prestigious, highly esteemed, global non-governmental organization. It is committed to advancing human rights and alleviating human suffering, and it seeks to prevent and resolve conflicts, enhance freedom and democracy, and advance healthcare. And in 2002, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Jimmy Carter for his decades of untiring effort to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development. Continuing as an assistant to President Carter, Dr. Hockman has also helped him with most of his 32 books and other publications and coordinates his academic affairs at Emory University. Shown here on this slide are just a couple of Jimmy Carter's best-selling books that Dr. Hockman has assisted with. And here's another of Dr. Hockman with President Jimmy Carter at a book signing event. Dr. Hockman is a member of the faculty at Emory University, where he has taught courses in the departments of history and political science, and courses on Jefferson, non-governmental organizations, and public policy. He has authored several professional publications and has lectured extensively. His own writings and lectures have focused on the Carter Center and American history. And finally, here's a quote from Mr. Barbosa after being asked to provide input to the Enright Committee. While President Jimmy Carter is known the world over as an advocate of human rights, Dr. Stephen Hockman is known as an advocate of America's legacy. His research, teaching, and publications emphasize the origins of the United States political systems and how our nation continues to influence the world. As a historian, Dr. Hockman preserved our heritage. In doing so, he fulfills President Carter, challenge us to adjust to the changing times, and still hold unchanging principles. So let me leave you with this. Dr. Hockman is clearly a very accomplished lecturer, historian, and biographer in his own right, and worthy of induction to the Enright Academic Hall of Fame, but also a great contributor to the success of two highly accomplished men, President Jimmy Carter and Dumas Malone, while also being key to the success of the highly prestigious and world-renowned Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia. So at this time, let me welcome Dr. Stephen Hockman to the stage and congratulate him on his induction in the Enright Academic Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. This honor means a great deal to me because Central High School has meant a great deal to me and to my family. My father was one of the first students to attend Central when this building opened in 1933. My mother and 10 uncles and aunts also graduated from Central. Numerous cousins attended, too many to count. Two of them, Carol and Bob Hausch, are here today, as is my brother Dean, a Central basketball and tennis letterman. I had 4 excellent years here, and like some of you today was inducted into the National Honor Society. Congratulations to all of you. I learned my strengths and my weaknesses and decided to focus on my strengths when I went to the University of Missouri and to the University of Virginia. I chose to pursue what I most enjoyed, learning about the stories of the past, history, and engaging as I could in public affairs. At the University of Virginia, I was preparing to be a professor of history when I was offered a unique opportunity. And let me say, from my experience, I advise younger people to be ready to pursue new opportunities, even though it might be more comfortable to remain on a path already chosen. What happened to me was that Dumas Malone, one of the great historians and biographers of the 20th century, had retired from teaching and was devoting himself to completing what would become a 6-volume biography of Thomas Jefferson. Malone asked me to be his research assistant. He had started this project before I was born, but still had 3 volumes to go. I accepted, and for 2 years worked part-time for him as I continued my studies. Then his eyesight deteriorated, and he needed more help. I put off finishing my doctoral dissertation and went to work full-time for him. We completed the series and won the Pulitzer Prize for History. My plan was to spend the next year finishing my dissertation and teaching a survey course. Then I received a telephone call from the editor of the Thomas Jefferson papers at Princeton University. He told me that President Jimmy Carter, who had just left office, had gone to Princeton for advice on how to write his presidential memoirs. He was advised to get a knowledgeable assistant, and I was asked if I would like to be recommended for the job. I responded yes, even though I thought it unlikely that he would choose someone who specialized in early American presidents. I was invited to an interview with President Carter in Atlanta, Georgia. In the waiting room, it was a bit intimidating for me, finding myself seated next to a former Secretary of State. Yet when my interview began, President Carter put me at ease. It turned out he had just been in Northwest Missouri receiving an award at the Truman Library, and Harry Truman was his favorite president. I also was relatively relaxed because I didn't need the job. That is always the best situation for a job interview. We hit it off, and I ultimately was offered the job. This was another opportunity I had to take, even though it meant putting off finishing my dissertation again. When I accepted, I had my 15 minutes of fame, being written up in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and newspapers throughout the United States. Then I went to work out of the limelight in Plains, a town of about 675 people, a good distance from any sizable city. But this did mean that over the next year and a half, I got to know President Carter and his family really well. When President Carter decided to join with Emory University in Atlanta and create a non-governmental organization, the Carter Center, he asked me to go with him. The years following have been amazing. I have remained engaged in researching and writing about history, but I also have been engaged in making history. Focusing on Thomas Jefferson was fascinating, but I never was able to ask him questions, as I have President Carter. And Jefferson never asked me for help, as President Carter has. Through President Carter and the Carter Center, I have had the opportunity to make a positive difference in the world, contributing to the advancement of peace and human rights. I have been fortunate to assist two outstanding men. I thank the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for honoring me and for my work with them. Thank you.
Dr. Hudson. Let me just take one last opportunity to congratulate our three inductees for this year, and appreciate so much their making the effort to come here to be with us today and to provide their comment. It is a difficult task, of course, an expense. There's great expense involved with getting here, and there's scheduling that has to be done and time out of the work week and the career efforts. So again, let me thank you so much for being here today, and congratulations again.
Thank you, Mr. Smith and honorees. Today, 4 members have been asked to speak with you about the 4 qualities held in high esteem by the Society and the basis of membership in the National Honor Society. The Vice President, Ruby Jenko, will introduce them.
The first quality a student must demonstrate is leadership. The speaker today is Alex Anick and Neighbors.
When I was 6, I conceptualized leadership as quite simply bossing people around nicely. Today, I have failed to be what my 6-year-old self called a leader. Those who know me would agree that nice is far from the first adjective to describe my leadership style. Sure, there is a place for kindness and niceties, but if that is your first descriptor, you may just have missed the mark of greatness. No one has ever used nice as the first word to describe great leaders. Martin Luther King, Margaret Thatcher, President George Washington, and Winston Churchill were not nice. They were bold, determined, loyal, persuasive, and most of all, effective. They all gained the respect of those around them rather than being amiable. Good leaders bank on their easygoing nature and optimistic pep talks to rally support. Great leaders, however, execute and achieve, gaining them the respect and therefore support of others. A good leader is somebody everybody likes and wants to work with. Great leaders are critics, have critics, and want critics. If you do not readily welcome criticism, you will not grow. If you do not give it, then you are inhibiting another's growth. Great leaders are able to command the respect of others through their own action and promote change brought on by healthy criticism. When I was 12, I believed leadership was calling the shots because someone had to. Most of this was true, except 12-year-old me was missing what came next, the fallout of those calls. A primary role of a leader is to take only a fraction of the credit and all of the blame. A leader must stand up for his or her team, be an advocate, and question authority no matter the personal cost. Great leaders challenge the status quo. Martin Luther King was accused of inciting riots as he advocated for civil rights. The Founding Fathers were considered traitors to the British Crown when they sought to be free from Britain's oppressive rule. These American icons embodied leadership through rebellion. They questioned authority and stood up for those who couldn't or wouldn't stand up for themselves. Seeing injustices and actively attempting to right them for the betterment of others is leadership. Being the voice and risking yourself for your peers is leadership. How each of you has a voice, and how you use it is up to you. You can either use your voice to preach what you have simply been told to say, or you can preach what you know to be right no matter the cost. If you choose the latter, you will face hardship and consequence. You will be accused of inciting riots and being traitorous. You may even get called a bad leader. But I can assure you, you are not, and it is always worth it. Today, at 18, I would tell you that to be a leader, you have to possess the vision to accomplish a common goal. The ability of a leader rests on providing the path or framework for which the common goal can be achieved efficiently. A great quote by John Buchan reads, "The task of leadership is not to put greatness into people, but to elicit it, for it is already there." The key to leadership is realizing you are not the most intelligent, innovative, creative, kind, or hardworking individual in the room, and it's not your job to be. It is only to see that each member of your team is like a puzzle piece, each inherently unequal with differing skill sets and talents. The leader stands above, able to see exactly how the pieces of their team can fit together to form a picture. The quality of that vision is what separates good leaders from great ones. All great leaders were once known as visionaries. So if you ask me when I'm 24 what defines a leader, I will probably give you a different answer. But what I do know is the enduring characteristics of leadership will always rest in being respected by those around you, speaking up for what is right no matter the cost, and having the vision to accomplish a common goal. With these ideas in mind, each of you can go from being a good leader to being a great one. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The second quality esteemed by the Society is scholarship. The speaker today is Joshua Clarendon.
Life is results-based. This is a statement we are all taught from the day we are born. We are taught that success of your life isn't necessarily measured by stories told, but rather by accolades accumulated. It isn't measured by benchmarks reached, but rather by goals left unachieved. It isn't measured by lessons learned, but by money earned. As we have gotten older, this mentality of goal orientation has left its typical arena of reminiscence and has found its way into our everyday lives, including our lives at high school. How many times do you guys think to yourself, if I can just get this one thing done, I will be happy and relaxed? Or if I get accepted here, I can be content? Or if I just get through this week, everything will be okay? I don't know about you guys, but this type of thinking is something I experience a lot. While focusing on the future like this can be beneficial in some situations, most of the time it can be more harmful than helpful. Because getting one thing finished will ultimately lead to having another huge ordeal to complete. Instead, it is better to focus on the here and now. To understand this better, simply look at the definition of the word scholarship: academic study or achievement, learning of the highest level. By limiting your field of view to just the future, you never get the full scope and benefits of your scholarship, which isn't just the information you acquire, but rather the actual process of learning and amassing that knowledge, a process that can be much more valuable than any accolade or award acquired through said knowledge. George Harrison put it best when he said, "It's being here now that's important. There's no past and there's no future. Time is a very misleading thing. All there ever is the now." We too often get infatuated with the future, something ambiguous, subjective, and most importantly, not here yet. Instead, obsess over the present. Instead of focusing on outcomes, focus on what you are learning through the process. Instead of stressing over getting scholarships, look to extend the impact of your scholarship. Instead of focusing on what's to come, focus on what is. Because as the wise master Oogway said in the first Kung Fu Panda, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Skadoosh.
Thank you, Josh. The third quality necessary for membership is character. The speaker today is Bailey Oldrich.
John Wooden once said, "Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. The true test of a man's character is what he does when no one is watching." Have you ever heard the quote thrown out by a third grade photographer trying to catch that field trip picture, or a parent trying to squeeze all the cousins' faces into the Christmas card? If you can't see me, I can't see you. Funny how little memories can stick with us and pop up at the strangest of times. I remember when I was 4 years old, my mom told me I had to stop sucking my thumb. For some reason, she thought it wouldn't be quite as cool if that habit continued into my adult life. Weird, huh? We tried just about everything, but I was stubborn. Finally, I just hid on my couch. Very inconspicuous. And when I thought I was under the cover of those 2-foot couch cushions, I would indulge in my bad habit. I figured as long as I hid and kept my eyes closed, I couldn't see my mom, so she couldn't see me. I was in the clear for sure. Turns out, my grade school photographer lied about the technicalities of his little phrase, and I was caught. As much as we'd like to think they do, those little behavioral shortcomings don't simply disappear as we grow. They become quite a bit sneakier, though. I chose to go against what my mom knew was best for me when I thought that no one was looking. It seems easy to hide behind the freedoms and conveniences of our teenage years. Maybe it's the anonymous nature of social media, maybe a less than vigilant teacher. We are simply at a stage where it can seem like absolutely no one is watching. So what? Why not continue to lie and cheat and steal and sneak? Why not continue down this recklessly selfish path? Because this lack of self-control, self-respect arguably, is not what changes relationships, communities, and outlooks. We are always asking for change, but where is this willingness to be a part of it? National Honor Society upholds character as a foundational pillar, not a suggestion, not a friendly reminder, but a necessity. This means we uphold the value of character as far more than simply being good. Good is relative, so let's root character in something much more steadfast. NHS works to define this in numerous ways, but a few stand out to me as a senior in high school. A person of character chooses to stand and be an advocate for those who are experiencing adversity. They choose to personally commit to community, and they choose to commit to fairness and social justice. Sitting behind me, I see students who make the daily choice to define themselves by character. Students who, over the past 4 years at Central High School, have defended outcasts in the lunchroom, the locker room, and the classroom. Students who chose to take time out of their schedule daily to serve the ostracized members of our community. Students who woke up every day and said, I am going to be a voice for those who don't have one. Looking back on countless encouraging conversations, behind-the-scenes services, club meetings, petitions, marches, and more, I see a community full of character when it counted. At the very age when neglect and mischief are most accessible, when it is much easier to slide by and stay quiet, they chose care. Care for their peers, their city, and their futures. These daily choices are what transform environments. Without motives deeply rooted in character, communities fall apart. If you truly desire growth, if you truly desire it, then take a look at what you're watering your community with. Because if apathy and selfish gains guide our actions, positive change is simply wishful thinking. So I ask you today, Central High School, in a world that chooses ease over honor, will you choose the selflessness of character? Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey. The fourth basis for membership is service. The speaker today is Abby Grooms.
Albert Einstein once said, "Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile." Einstein was offering the challenge to look beyond ourselves and into the life of another. Opportunities serve to present themselves to us every day and in every situation. Service begins by looking. It becomes fruitful by listening, and it develops authenticity when we make it part of our life. Begin by looking. Often opportunities fall right into our lap, yet other times we have to watch for them. When we open our eyes to what's going on around us, we find ways to serve. Our chance to help may be in the lives of our classmates, our coworkers, our neighbors, or a fellow stranger. When we look around, we realize all kinds of needs. Listen for specifics. We serve others most effectively by hearing what they need. Most often, they know what they need better than anyone. They are the ones living it. Open a dialogue with people. Learn their stories. Many times we learn that the need is completely different from what we originally thought. Once we discover the hardship, we are able to begin helping in a relevant way to affect positive outcomes in a situation. Listening is the most effective way to a relevant service. Once we have seen and heard, it is time to make it real. Service becomes authentic through relationships. The fun begins when we get to know people. What starts as a need, however great or small, develops into a connection between individuals. We work together toward a goal, and in the process, we build bonds with each other. What happens next is a realization that while we have been serving the need for another, they have been serving us as well. We have made a positive impact on a situation, and they have fed our soul in return. As many of you know, I like to work on the farm, and I see parallels to service in farming. A farmer pays attention to the field, always looking for needs. The farmer knows that a good harvest begins with fertile soil and healthy seed. Once they've planted the field, they listen to what the plants are telling them. They weed, water, fertilize, and nurture the plants so they can grow to their full potential. A farmer enjoys the work and the bounty of the harvest. The crop yields more than enough to the farmer. Its fruits spill over into the lives of many. A single crop feeds numerous people while also producing the seed needed for next year's crop. Farmers grow different crops. A Midwest farmer may grow corn, soybeans, or wheat, while a farmer in South America might grow coffee or cocoa beans. The needs and conditions dictate the seeds we plant, and while one field may look very different from another, they each hold the capacity to produce a fruitful harvest. Corrie ten Boom risked her life to save lives of Jews persecuted by the Nazis. Mother Teresa devoted her life to helping the poor. Dr. William McGee founded Operation Smile to repair cleft palates in children overseas. They each reaped a different crop, but each was necessary in the life of another. Our service may be grand, like theirs, or it may be as small and simple as a garden that feeds the needs of a few. No act of service is too small to the one who receives it, and the blessing comes in the relationship that grows when we enjoy the fruit together, and a relationship that formed while planting, tending, and caring for the crop. The Farmer's Almanac says planting season is upon us. The soil is ready. What shall we plant today?
Dr. Godfrey will now present recognition awards to these students.
Thank you to the speakers today. Let's give them another round of applause. What a great job they did. Thank you again to those of you who exemplify scholarship, leadership, character, and service. Central High School would like to award each of you today with a recognition medallion. First, Alex Neighbors. Josh Clarendon. Bailey Aldrich. Abby Grooms.
Thank you, Dr. Godfrey. The Secretary, Maureen Tai, will now administer the Pledge of Membership.
Will the initiates please rise? I promise to maintain my enthusiasm for scholarship, to continue to give service, to be of good character, and to promote worthy leadership. I will do nothing to dishonor the Central High School chapter of National Honor Society. I accept my membership with humility and gratitude. Mr. President, the pledge has been administered.
The remainder of the ceremony will consist of the new members lighting the candles that symbolize their membership. Abby Adkins.
Jacob Ball.
Cruz Becerra.
Sierra Blair.
William Blazer.
Lauren Bloodgood.
Sage Bouchard.
Zach Brown.
Andrew Bruner.
Lake Campbell.
Shannon Casey.
Ashley Cochran.
Ethan Crooks.
Sydney Dixon.
Danielle Dotson.
Nicholas Ebling.
Spencer Ebling.
Ariana Fish.
Carson Gaddy.
Cameron Gilmore.
Ansh Gupta.
Cole Hopkins.
Abigail Horn.
Adam Johnston.
Colton Joseph.
Caleb Keeling.
Michaela Kearns.
Bria Kirby.
Jessica Lord.
Josiah McCrander.
Haley McCamey.
Sam Moore.
Janice Myers.
Patrick Newen.
Leanne Nordstrom.
Grace Swope.
Thomas Scott.
Olivia Smith.
Nicholas Steele.
Alex Stewart.
Hayden Stewart.
Michael Tiemann.
Addison Wheatley.
Joseph Zythan Moya.
May the lights of scholarship, service, leadership, and character at Central High School never be dimmed. Thank you. Please return to your fourth hour class or your house.